Is everyone properly caffeinated now? Sure. Only if you have one. So, welcome. This is going to be really awesome talk. You're going to see a lot of crazy stuff today. How many people have ever been to a JS Conf event before? Okay, cool. So, you're about to have your mind kind of blown. You're going to see some really crazy stuff, but the idea here is to give you some concrete things to actually go back and start thinking about. So, one of the things I want to talk to you about is a project that we've been working on sort of lately. I think we've ever talked about it before, ever really released it. It's a little too buggy, but hopefully soon. So, it's a project called Boatyard, and I obviously work for a company called XFM. So, you can see it back there. Is everybody cool with sound and visual? First talk in the morning. Alright, so XFM is, this was a German blog a couple days ago, and I just liked it, so I stole it. So it's really just more than like a web app or whatever it is. It's really about sort of creating like this whole environment to sort of interact with music in an interesting way. So what we try and do is answer, like a lot of questions that you might have for how this stuff works. So I have this crazy song on SoundCloud or Bandcamp, like I'm going to play it right now. How do I do that? And really sort of drive people to discover new and sort of independent music. But the reason, to go back to the environment thing for a minute, it sort of runs everywhere, right? Like the idea is, we want to sort of be that, when you think about music, like make it really simple to sort of play it, right? So, it literally, our goal is to literally have it sort of run on everything. Right now it's pretty much iOS, web, lots and lots of extensions. But that's sort of part of what we do is, we really want this thing to be all over the place. So this isn't quite as impactful since you saw it earlier, but this is what XFM actually looks like. And you can see the little red guy up on the top. That's a Chrome extension. So it sort of started out as Dan just wanted a way to, he was playing music in one tab. Okay, go to another tab. Where's it coming from, right? So just solving that like one problem is how this all sort of got started. And so now what the extension does is, as people cruise around with it, there's sort of an artifact, right, of please pick up the music on the page and say like, it's by this artist, and here's the title. So from this little like Chrome extension, all this other stuff sort of came out of that, right? Like, all of this sort of metadata stuff, and we can see kind of as things sort of pop up in different places, like what things are actually popular. So it's pretty neat. And if you haven't tried it, please do. So Boatyard. So we had a problem that we've been sort of talking about, right? We want to get a crap load of data from Mongo into S3 and then try and run some other analysis on it, right? So with like, 1 million documents or so, this is a relatively simple process, but we're talking about 50 million individual documents, average about like 1K a piece, almost 2K, and that brings us up to 90 gigs of data. Not exactly something you can just like read through a standard like Mongo cursor, right? So the first thing we sort of went to try and solve this was Elastic MapReduce. Something, everybody, cool. So Elastic MapReduce is Amazon's solution for kind of running Hadoop in a very sort of liquid kind of fashion, right? So you just say like, hey, I want a new Hadoop cluster, and Elastic MapReduce says, okay, here you go, done. And then when you're finished with it, you can just kind of, hit one button and delete it all, right? So I love the little elephant with the bang. So obviously we use MongoDB for our primary store, and there's a Hadoop and Mongo connector. If anybody's here from Tengen, we should probably talk. But the thing that sucks about it is it doesn't work with Elastic MapReduce, right? So there's a unfortunately, this is on their Jira. It's been open forever. It's very well intentioned, but you know, it just doesn't work. So we said, okay, well, you know, since we can't use Elastic MapReduce, let's just do it ourselves, right? Like, we'll just write a little Python script that'll set up a cluster and tear it down. How many people have actually done a Hadoop cluster before?
What kind of cluster?
Hadoop. Right? So Hadoop is a big thing, right? There are lots and lots of Apache tools that have been built on top of it. Like, there's a lot of science going on, like, under the hood. It's not just something you can kind of throw together. It's not very light. Like, you don't just like set these things up for fun. Like, it's painful to set up a Hadoop cluster. There are a lot of smart people who are working on this problem. Cloudera, Cloudera, you guys are awesome. But you know, really, what we wanted to do was just have like a little function that we want to run like across each document and sort of manipulate it a little bit and toss some stuff up to S3. And it would be great if we could just do it in JavaScript, because then, you know, we can just, anybody really on our side can just throw it up there and do stuff. So that led us to this guy, so Boatyard. It's a node package. I don't think it's actually published yet, though, so I will publish it as soon as I can. But the idea is you have two functions and some metadata that kind of go around that, and that's your boat, right? So boats are intended to be really small, and for the most part right now, one-time use, right? So make some data, eat it, finish, done. No searching for jars, no setting up scoop and flume and any of that stuff, right? So there's two parts to this function. There's the partitioner. So this is just sort of a general purpose, like, hey, I have 50 million documents. Break that down in a way that I can actually distribute it amongst a bunch of people who are going to kind of work on it, right? And then there's the task. So the task is going to take a partition and do something with it. So in our case, the first thing we really wanted to do was, you know, take a 100,000 document slice out of Mongo and marshal it down, and then just put that on S3, right? Because once we get things shoveled over, then, you know, we can kind of do whatever. We're not bound by sort of all the inherent problems of running Mongo inside of AWS. And then again, the metadata. So, you know, what hosts do you want to point it to? It generates a package.json like on the fly for you, so you can just kind of, you know, there's nothing sort of like cooked in that's really all that required. Stowaways, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, but that's just kind of like an arbitrary dictionary. You can just sort of give it, and then everybody will be aware of it as you go, and, you know, no qualms. So in terms of like architecture, so at the top level you have the captain, right? So you have one machine that's going to take everything and sort of deal it out and sort of maintain state and kind of report back and say like, here's what's going on the boat right now. And then you have the mates who are primarily responsible for, you know, talking directly to the captain. And then you have the hands, which are actually going to do the work. So the captain runs your partitioner function, right? So split up, you know, this big collection into little chunks, and then when you start the mate, so a mate is one instance, right? The reason that we use all this nomenclature is it's, you know, really hard to use like things like master and worker inside a node, because those already mean things. We're doing something a little bit different, but under the hood, this is all cluster. So, you know, the mates are the only ones who actually talk to the hands, right? So like, on a boat, you don't just have the dudes in the bottom of the boat like talking directly to the captain. That's just stupid. So they sort of manage like going from what's actually working, you know, what's happening like on the ground, to like a higher level sort of reporting interface. And these hands are sort of these are individual processes, right? So you can have like, depending on what you're doing, you can have, you know, 1 per CPU or 30 per machine, like. Whatever it is, it's totally flexible. And what sort of happens in this whole flow, since we want it to be something that, you know, we just run and then everything dies and, you know, the job's done. So when the mate finds out from the captain that, you know, all the work's done and there's nothing else to do, it'll just start like killing things as it goes. So the hand will ask for more work to do. The mate checks with the captain says nothing else, and the mate says, okay, throw that guy, you know, off the boat. So the other thing that we wanted to do was not really deploy anything. So we just wanted like a simple little command line tool to do this. So, you know, you code up your functions. You have pretty simple 2 like 20-line functions. Say, you know, where you want to deploy it, and then you just run launch. So that takes your local files, stuffs them up to the captain and the mates. Feeling pretty good right now. The captain and the mates start talking. You know, the mates need to see like if the captain's actually awake yet, and whether it's ready to go. So the first thing that happens is they start up and start trying to ping the captain to see what's what. And then once things are kind of going, you know, again, like we talked about, so there's just this little tree. So the guys on the far right are hands, the guys in the middle are mates, and the one captain. So it's pretty neat. But you know, so let's talk about more reasons for why we sort of did this, right? So we are a very small company. We are 8 people, and we just things like setting up an entire Hadoop cluster just like aren't in our life. Like there's so much stuff going on. Like we just don't have time to like take 2 weeks and you know, brush up on all the documentation and make sure that our Hadoop cluster is going to stay up and scale. Really, what we want to do is just get shit done. You know, and it has to be sort of a zero deploy kind of thing in order to do that, right? Like we just want to be able to hit the command line, throw it out there, it runs, it's done, right? That's it. There's no like CloudFormation service stuff. Like as cool as that all is, like we don't want to do that for everything. For like services that do need to stay up and sort of running, you know, we'll spend our time on that. But like really, these things are just sort of ad hoc. You know, so it has to be like very simple. The third thing is the Jiffsniff. Everybody know what Jiffsniff is? So the idea here is, you know, let's do this in JavaScript, right? Because it's fun. It's very simple. Like there's no palms, there's no context writers, there's none of that stuff in your life, right? Like it's very, very simple code. Like, anybody can look at it and say like, oh, gotcha. If this talks to Mongo, put stuff on S3. Fine. You know, and there's a lot of stuff that you can do on top of it. It's not just limited to JavaScript. Like if you really wanted to do something intense, you know, you could just like call out to a C library or you know, start like a Go subprocess or whatever you want to do. Node just gives us that sort of flexibility to kind of have the networking framework to sort of have all these people talk. So what the hell can you do with it, right? I gave a couple examples, but let's just talk about this a little bit more. This is some of the stuff that we've come up with so far as to why this is kind of a good thing to do. So the first thing is we have, you know, we're always rolling out like new infrastructure and trying to tweak things, and we really want to see like, is this actually better than what we have now, right? So setting up like a simple distributed stress test is like gnarly simple, right? Like you're not like deploying AMIs, you just have like a bunch of instances that are already out there running. You hit the command line, and you know you're all there. And there's no like nothing is sort of tied inherently to the framework. So our primary use case was we need to move a buttload of data, and because of the way that Mongo works and lots of other things work, you know, you have to do this stuff in a distributed fashion. There's just like there's not enough pipe to do it. You could also write really interesting web crawlers, right? So like you take a list of domains, make those partitions, and then the hand is actually going to go out and crawl, right? So we haven't added this yet, but then you can basically have the hands report on new partitions to work on. So you hit one page and that finds like 50 links, right? Take those 50 links and kick them back up the tree, and somebody else will go get them later. And just in general, like it's a good way to do analysis, right? With MapReduce, this is kind of where everybody goes to MapReduce to do like big math. You know, I need to use a cluster of machines to chew through 100 million tags and give me like an overall taxonomy. You can just do this stuff in a really simple kind of way. There's actually a, I don't know if anybody's talking about it, but there's a library called ecog, which has like sort of higher order math functions in it. Like everybody, you guys know what Mahout is?
What? Yes.
Mahout? Mahout's like a machine learning framework for Hadoop that has sort of everything built into it, right? So you can just say like, hey, I need to do k-means clustering, and of course there's like 5 jars right there ready for you to go. But we don't really want to do that. But so really, it's kind of an open-ended thing, and that's why the tool stuff is really exciting, right? Like what we're trying to do, and Ben's going to talk, and Lance is going to talk in a little bit. Really, what we're trying to do is give everybody kind of this this sort of backbone kind of framework to work with, right? Like it's kind of up to you, like what you do with it. Those are just sort of some of the crazier things that are kind of off the top of my head. So if you do get a chance, please check it out. It's up on GitHub. It really needs some pretty serious love, but so far everybody's been pretty interested in just the general idea. So if you have questions, just come find me